So I'm delighted to say joining us once again on the We Are West Ham podcast is Henry Jackson from This is Anfield to look ahead to West Ham v Liverpool Wednesday night in the Premier League at London Stadium. Henry, brilliant having you back on the show. Again, thanks very much for giving us your time. Liverpool 7th in the table at the moment. Bit of a weird season. I thought putting it lightly, I suppose, if you're a Liverpool fan. It's one of those, isn't it, really? You seem to be coming into or remembering how to play football a little bit more in the last few weeks. 3-2 win at home to Nottingham Forest last time out, and then a 6-1 walloping of Leeds at Ellen Road before that. However, they did also lose 5-1 to Crystal Palace, so putting loads of goals past Leeds, perhaps not so difficult. What have you made sort of on the whole of what your general thoughts on the Reds at the moment?
I mean, there are signs of an improvement, definitely. I think for all the problems we've had, sort of loss of confidence and maybe sort of physical, mental tiredness from last season, I still think sort of injuries is something that maybe not enough is made of. I think injuries are huge in football, and
Definitely.
A lot of our struggles, I think, were because of that. Earlier in the season, there was a point where I think Salah was our only fit attacker. You know, we had Diaz, Nunes, Firmino, Jota. They were all out. We had issues at the back with Konate was out, and I think all that, with other issues, just caused this kind of perfect storm of a terrible season for most of it. But I think now we've just suddenly started to get these players back, got a little bit of a rhythm in the starting lineups, and I think it's showing. And it's not perfect by any means. You know, obviously the Leeds result you mentioned was great and a brilliant performance, but they're a pretty poor team, so I wouldn't go too overboard about that. And then Forest, we gifted them ways back into the game twice at the weekend. So, there are still issues there. It's still not the team that it was last season, but you can just see that confidence returning and a little bit more energy about the team.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you mentioned West. I've been banging the injuries drum for ages this season. It's flavour of the month for all of, or not so much anymore. Certainly not off the back of the last couple of results we've had, but for lots of the season, it's been flavour of the month to, Moyes out and he's rubbish. He's a dinosaur. He doesn't know what he's doing. Yeah. The fact of the matter is, he spent £160 million in the summer on 5 or 6 players, and all of them, apart from the worst one in Thilo Kehrer, have had significant amount of times out injured. Yeah. Aguerd got injured before he even started the season. Paqueta had problems on and off. Scamacca we've barely seen play. Maxwell Corner had some long-standing leg injury, and he's only just started coming into the team. Those things are absolutely huge, but fans are so quick, in my experience, and it seems yours, to just completely disregard the fact about that.
I think you only have to look at Arsenal, to be honest. I think there was a spell when Arsenal were, credit to them for being where they are in the league, but there was a spell where you could pretty much name their starting lineup every single game. It was the same, apart from that, obviously Jesus was out for a while. Apart from that, it was 10 players the same every single game. And as soon as a couple of injuries have come for them, Saliba and whoever else, they've started falling apart a little bit. And I think they just show how important having just a set team week in, week out is.
Yeah, well, exactly that. Yeah, and it's easy, isn't it? I mean, Klopp's been saying this season, if I was a new manager and I'd come in and performed like this, then I probably wouldn't be in a job. And, his sort of past glories. I think, to be honest, the same could probably be said for David Moyes at West Ham. Obviously, a little bit further down the table, our story's playing out. What's sort of the goal for the end of the season? I know it's an easy thing to say, and you want to finish as high as possible, but perhaps more of a realistic one. I think it was Diogo Jota I heard talking the other week, and again, you expect the players to say these sort of things, but I think he was saying that we're still holding out hope for 4th spot. You played 31 games, you got 50 points, which is 9 points off United in 4th. It seems a big ask. I think Jota said that you'd have to win every single game. Whether that's going to happen or not. What as a fan, what's your sort of realistic outlook on things at the moment?
I think realistically, we needed Spurs to get something off Newcastle the other day. I think we were 6 behind Newcastle going into that game, and I think if that had been a draw or Spurs had won, you could have seen like a potential wobble from Newcastle. But they look like they're playing too well at the moment, as they show.
Look good, don't they?
To be 9 behind them with 7 games left, we're just realistically not going to catch them, and United have got enough points as well. So I think realistically, 5th has to be the aim now. I mean, I think it's criminal. I mean, we've been bad, but it's criminal to be behind this Spurs team because they are just dreadful. I don't really know how they've got as many points as they have, but I think the aim has to be to finish 5th, and I think we will take them. Brighton are obviously in and amongst it. Villa are up there as well, but I do think we've hit a little bit of a rhythm where I think we're going to sort of the end of the season's relatively easy fixtures wise. And
well, you've got to play Villa, haven't you?
Yeah, and Tottenham actually on Sunday. So there are some big games. But I would back us to get 5th now, just because I think we've got a little bit of confidence back. But as for it's out of the question, really.
Yeah, it seems a bit much. So, looking ahead to the game on Wednesday night, what's the feeling among Liverpool fans? Because a bit of an odd one. I know we sort of get the odd result against Liverpool every now and then, but I never really, unlike I do when we play Manchester United, for example, or perhaps Chelsea, where I always go into the game with a little bit of confidence or thinking there's a little bit of a chance. The Liverpool game I sort of always never really get excited about. Obviously, our record at Anfield plays a major part of that, because we average about one win there every 65 and a half years or something at the moment. But what's the feeling among fans then going into Wednesday's game?
I think, not overly, not massive confidence. I think there will be confidence that Liverpool are favourites going into it, and that we can win and maybe will win. But I think if we did, it would be a tight game. I always find, I don't know, I mean, going to Upton Park was never easy, and although it's obviously a very different ground now, and we've done well there a lot of the times, I still look at it as it always just has an awkward feel about it, that game. I think you are one of those teams that can sort of raise your game against the bigger teams. I almost feel like you're more likely to lose at 3-0 at home to a Forest from nowhere, and then you turn up against Arsenal the other week and come from 2-0 down. So I think you've got a draw against us in one of the seasons that City pipped us to the title at the end, and it was we probably deserved to lose. So I think, under the lights and all that, you've obviously hit some form winning at Bournemouth and the Arsenal game. I think it's one of those where the crowd will be behind you in more positive spirits, and the first goal will be key. I think if we got the first goal, then I could see us pulling away. But it certainly has one of those games where I can see you sort of springing us on the counter attack, and the commentators saying, the flaws are still there for Liverpool. And maybe their form over the last few weeks has been exaggerated a bit. So I think it will be a tight game, definitely.
Yeah, no, it's an odd one, because prior to the weekend Sunday's game at Bournemouth, I was down at the Vitality, and we were excellent. We started so quickly. But before that game, we've had 2 matches, Ghent at home in the Conference League semi-final second leg, where we went behind 2-1 on aggregate, 1-0 on the night, and then came back to win 4-1, which was obviously brilliant. And then the game before that was Arsenal in the league, when we were 2-0 down within 25 minutes or whatever it was then as well. And you're thinking, this is a disaster. And that was the problem. It was the slow starts. I think the 2 goals we scored we were 3-0 up in 40-odd minutes at Bournemouth. And those 3 goals the 2 goals that we scored, were like our first 2 goals we'd scored in the first 15 minutes of a game all season, because we were 2-0 up after 12 minutes. So we've historically been really slow starters, and that doesn't help, does it, at football at this level? You put yourself behind, and teams are really good at holding on to leads these days.
That's what we've done. That's what Liverpool have done all season long, is keep going behind, and they've managed to stop that recently, and it's made all the difference. So it's huge.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Before Sunday, I'd have said, I'm not confident, because if we give Liverpool, it's slightly different giving Ghent a 1-0 lead, but you give Liverpool or Arsenal, we were lucky to get back against Arsenal, to be fair. We played well, but that's not always going to happen. The odds are, if you concede goals and go behind, you're not always going to get back in. So I'm hoping that we go at it hammer and tongs early to try and get something in the game, and just not let ourselves go behind early. So it makes a bit of a game of it. But what's your sort of likely? How do you see it playing out? What do you think is going to happen?
So I think it will be one of those games where we probably dominate the ball, and you try and spring us on the break, which is a lot of teams do against us, especially this season with some of the lack of pace from midfield running back. And so I can see it being one of these games where you let us have it and we lose the ball, trying to play a killer pass, and then it's whoever's playing for you, Bowen, Antonio, whoever it is, springing us on the break, sort of long balls over the top, sort of in behind, and that sort of game. And I think it's going to be a case of our finishing has let us down a lot this season, and we've had a lot of the ball, even when we weren't playing as well. Had a lot of the ball, we would have a chance and fluff our lines, and then get punished for it. So I think the key will be whether we take our chances, maybe get ahead, and then sort of maybe put you to the kill a little bit. I can see it being a draw. I do think Liverpool will win, but maybe a 2-1. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if it's one of those games where the crowd are up. You either get ahead or you equalise or something like that. And I think, to be honest, it would probably be quite an entertaining game. It feels a little bit like the kind of pressure's coming off a little bit for you in terms of relegation. And for us, obviously, we want to finish fifth, but that was wasn't our aim at the start of the season. Yeah. It doesn't feel like a huge game, a pressurised game for us too. So it'll probably be quite an entertaining game, hopefully, and sort of some good counter-attacking football from you, and hopefully some good passing football from us and plenty of goals.
Yeah. You know what? I've got a feeling that's exactly what's going to happen. I think with that win at Bournemouth, Moyes will see it as a bit of a free hit now. And not that he's notorious for just taking the shackles off, but I do think that he might go, you know what? Whatever. If we lose, we lose. But I think he will give it a go. I'm looking forward to it. Well, what are you looking team news-wise before I get your final score prediction and let you go?
As far as I'm aware, I haven't seen any sort of new injury news. So I think sort of you'd be looking at a similar team to the one that played Forest, where you're going to have sort of our best back four now comfortably is obviously Trent, obviously not having a good season, but Trent, Konate, Van Dijk.
Midfield maestro now, isn't he?
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, he's got this new role, which he's been pretty down in the dumps all season, and he just looks a little bit happier that he's just being given a little bit of a different role to just kind of, show how good he is. I mean, everyone knows what a good footballer he is. So those four will be at the back with him obviously drifting in a bit, and then I think you probably see maybe Fabinho, Thiago, and Henderson. You've got people like Curtis Jones in there, has been playing quite a lot recently, so he could start again. And then in attack, the go-to recently has really been Salah, Jota and Gakpo. Nunes hasn't really been getting in, and Jota's back amongst the goals. So I think it will probably be that three again. We've got Tottenham on Sunday, so there is the chance to rotate a little bit for this game and maybe bring in a Nunes or a Firmino or Harvey Elliott, someone like that. But injuries wise, they've certainly eased, and not as bad as it was.
No, quite. Well, just quickly then, what have you made of the new signings? Have you got like a best and worst, or it just seemed an odd one? They haven't really taken like you'd like them to.
I think Nunes, has taken a lot of unfair stick. Actually, I think there's no doubt that he hasn't set the world alight, and his finishing has been a bit erratic. He's a very raw player, and he's great on instinct. If he has too much time to think about a chance, then he's a little bit erratic. But he's still, when you look at his numbers, he's still delivered fairly solid numbers. And he strikes me as the kind of player who's a nightmare to play against. He's about 6'2". He's quick. He's strong. Yeah. And I think next season he will go up a level. So I think he's been unfairly treated, but he needs to do better. Gakpo, I think he's come in and is a little bit like Firmino. He's quite a subtle player.
Yeah.
Sort of links the attack and doesn't always stand out, but he sort of does things that you don't notice. But in terms of sort of the others, it feels like we haven't signed any players, which is probably unfair because the owners
the same as us this season. Yeah,
but I mean, we need to sign more this summer. But I mean, Carvalho came in for Fulham, made quite a promising start, scored a winner against Newcastle, and then he's just completely been sort of cast aside by Klopp for whatever reason. Maybe he's not up to it tactically yet in training, or for whatever reason he's just been really kind of cast aside, and it wouldn't surprise me if he maybe went out on loan in the summer. So he's probably one that's disappointed in the end this season because he looked like he was going to be a real sort of handy squad player, but he's been a disappointment.
Yeah, fair enough. Listen, Henry, it's been brilliant having you on the show again. We really appreciate you giving us your time. West Ham v Liverpool in the Premier League on Wednesday. You've alluded to a couple already. Let me nail you down for a score prediction.
I'll go 2-1 to the Reds. Yeah, tight game.
Yeah, I mean, sort of let the listeners behind the curtain a little bit. We recorded the main podcast last night. I'm doing this chat with you. on Tuesday morning. So I've actually already made my prediction with James. And I was obviously feeling a lot more buoyant last night. The evening buzz from Monday evening buzz still high from the Bournemouth game. I think I predicted a West Ham 4-1 win. So
Wow. Okay, fair
yeah,
enough.
exactly. Yeah, on the gloomy Tuesday morning when my cold's got a little bit worse, it seems a bit silly in the cold light of day. But I'm going to stick
I
with
wouldn't
it
rule it
just for
out. Given our
continuity's purpose.
season, I wouldn't rule it out.
Exactly. But listen, Henry, it's been absolutely brilliant having you with us. Henry Jackson there from This Is Anfield, looking ahead to Wednesday's Premier League game at London Stadium, West Ham v Liverpool. Stay